Psychopath versus sociopath. The shocking differences. You didn't know you've met this person. They're the most charismatic individual in the room, making you feel like the center of their universe. They have a magnetic energy, and their stories are captivating. But then there are moments, a flicker in their eyes when you mention something emotional, a story that doesn't quite add up, that leave you with a chilling feeling you just can't explain. Everyone thinks they can spot a psychopath from a mile away, thanks to Hollywood. We picture a cartoon villain, a monster lurking in the shadows. But the truth is far more subtle and often hides in plain sight. Today, we're dissecting the key traits Hollywood gets wrong and revealing the real differences between a psychopath and a sociopath and how their minds operate in our world. For decades, these two terms have been used almost interchangeably, causing a massive amount of confusion. You hear them in true crime documentaries, in blockbuster films, and maybe even in conversations about a manipulative ex-partner or a toxic boss. The reality is, while they share some disturbing similarities, the distinction between them is critical. Now, in a clinical setting, doctors don't officially diagnose people as psychopaths or sociopaths. Instead, both of these types fall under the medical diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder, or ASPD. ASPD is a condition characterized by a long-term pattern of manipulating, exploiting, or violating the rights of others without remorse. Think of ASPD as the tree, and psychopathy and sociopathy as two very different branches. Understanding these branches is the key. This knowledge isn't about labeling people. It's about recognizing patterns to protect yourself from deception and harm. So, let's break down the main differences you need to know. The origin story: nature versus nurture. The first and most fundamental difference lies in their origins. It's the classic debate of nature versus nurture, but the answer isn't as simple as one or the other. Psychopathy is believed to have stronger genetic and biological roots. Research points to differences in brain structure and function, particularly in areas like the amygdala and prefrontal cortex, which are responsible for emotion and impulse control. This suggests a biological predisposition that makes them less capable of processing deep emotions or forming genuine bonds. Sociopathy, on the other hand, is more closely linked to environmental factors. It's often forged in the fires of a traumatic childhood, such as severe abuse, neglect, or growing up in a chaotic home. While someone might have a genetic vulnerability, it's often trauma that acts as the trigger, shattering their worldview. So it's less about being born versus made, and more about emphasis. For psychopathy, nature has a stronger hand. For sociopathy, nurture plays a much larger role. The empathy gap: cold versus hot-headed. This brings us to their emotional capacity and expression, which is where we separate the cold-hearted from the hot-headed. A person with psychopathic traits has a severe lack of effective empathy. That is, the ability to feel the emotions of others. They can, however, have strong cognitive empathy, meaning they can logically understand what you're feeling, even if they don't feel it themselves. They use this understanding as a tool for manipulation. When they feign concern, they're simply mimicking emotions they've observed. While some may form limited attachments, these connections are typically shallow and self-serving. To them, other people are often just pawns in a game. A sociopath's emotional world is drastically different. While their empathy is also limited, it's not always completely absent. They may form a genuine, though often chaotic, attachment to an individual or a small group. The defining emotional trait of a sociopath isn't coldness, but volatility. They are far more prone to impulsive and explosive outbursts. Think hot-headed. When frustrated, they can fly into a rage without considering the consequences. Their emotional responses are erratic, standing in stark contrast to the psychopath's unshakable, cold demeanor. The social mask: charming versus erratic. The third difference is perhaps the most deceptive: how they present themselves to the world. One can wear a perfect mask, while the other can barely keep a mask on. Psychopaths can be masters of disguise, wearing what's often called the mask of sanity. They can be incredibly charming, witty, and appear perfectly normal. Because their own emotions don't cloud their judgment, they can coolly observe and mimic human behavior, allowing them to blend in. This is why some high-functioning individuals with psychopathic traits can be successful, climbing the corporate ladder or achieving positions of power. But this is also a stereotype. Many others with psychopathy lead chaotic and unstable lives. Sociopaths, however, often struggle to maintain a mask of normalcy. Their lives tend to be defined by instability. Their impulsivity and emotional volatility make it incredibly difficult for them to hold down a steady job or maintain stable relationships. They are more likely to be seen as troublemakers or outsiders. While a psychopath might carefully plan their moves, a sociopath often leaves a visible trail of broken relationships and failed responsibilities in their wake. If you're finding this information valuable and want to understand more about the psychology of the world around you, take a moment to subscribe. It helps us create more content like this to keep you informed and empowered. The nature of danger: calculated versus impulsive. Now let's talk about the one thing everyone worries about: the potential for harm. It's crucial to remember that not everyone with these traits is violent or a criminal, but their approach to harmful acts, if they occur, is very different. The danger of a psychopath lies in their calculation. Their violence is often premeditated, organized, and instrumental, meaning it's done to achieve a goal. They can be patient predators. Because they don't experience fear or anxiety in the same way others do, they can take huge risks with a steady hand. Their lack of emotion can make them efficient and meticulous. The danger of a sociopath, however, stems from their impulsivity. Their violence is typically reactive and spontaneous, an explosion of rage in response to frustration. A sociopath is the person who gets into a bar fight over a spilled drink or commits a crime on a whim. They act first and think later. Their actions are often messy and disorganized, making them easier to catch. While both can be dangerous, one is the cold-blooded plotter, while the other is the unpredictable hothead. The Hollywood myth versus clinical reality. This brings us to our final point: the huge gap between the Hollywood villain and the clinical reality. Media portrayals have deeply distorted our understanding of these disorders. Psychopaths, in particular, are often glamorized. Characters like Hannibal Lecter are depicted as brilliant, fascinating anti-heroes, creating a dangerous trope of the elite psychopath, whose intelligence almost makes you root for them. This fuels a public fascination that minimizes the real-world harm these traits can cause. But the real-world picture is far less glamorous. ASPD is a serious mental health condition, not a romanticized character type. In reality, these traits often lead to immense suffering for their victims and for the individuals themselves, who struggle to function in society. The media's focus on violence reinforces negative stereotypes and deepens the stigma around mental illness, making it harder to have productive conversations about these complex conditions. So, what's the main takeaway here? The differences are stark. Psychopathy leans toward nature and is defined by a cold, calculating demeanor and a severe deficit in emotional empathy. Sociopathy leans toward nurture and is characterized by emotional volatility, impulsivity, and erratic behavior. While both can be destructive, their methods and motivations are worlds apart. The purpose of this video isn't to turn you into an armchair psychologist. Instead, the goal is to give you a clearer lens to recognize manipulative and harmful patterns. It is about learning to trust your gut when someone's charm feels a little too perfect or their anger feels a little too explosive. This knowledge is a form of self-protection, helping you navigate a complex world with a better understanding of the minds within it. What are your thoughts? Have you ever encountered someone who fits these descriptions? Share your experiences respectfully in the comments below. And if this video helped bring you clarity, don't forget to like it and subscribe for more deep dives into the human mind.